We have a unique and fundamental position within British politics today, and I urge all of you, all of our members, to always remember that we are a national political party whose primary focus is to fight for independence through values, through principles, and through the ballot box. It's important that UKIP is represented and fights elections in every part of the United Kingdom. And I'm very pleased to be able to introduce you to you now, from Northern Ireland, Councillor Henry Riley. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Lords, ladies and gentlemen, firstly, I didn't know I was going to be given an opportunity to speak today, and I just jotted down a few notes on my voting card over the last few minutes. But I actually came down to London for my first annual conference with great trepidation, great fear, a sense of foreboding, because I read so much on the internet from David Cameron about all these cranks, loonies and fruitcakes, and I thought, you know, will they accept me? And then, but I have to say, with my hand on my heart, I've been here 2 days, and all I've met is fine, decent British people who love their country and want it back. Also, whenever John Whittaker came to my home to help me, I'm very, very grateful to UKIP for the support they have given me since I moved to the UK Independence Party from the Ulster Unionists. John was sitting in my car one evening and he said, "Henry, why have you such high walls around your home?" But I served in the British Army as a part-time soldier as well as being an Ulster Unionist councillor, and we were under considerable threat. But during that time, even whenever we carried a 9mm pistol everywhere with me, kept it under my pillow at night, I was never worried. I may have been scared that I would have been killed, but even if I had been killed, there were other people like me who could have fought the cause. You can kill an individual, but you can't kill the cause. But I always knew, ladies and gentlemen, that we would prevail and our place in the United Kingdom would be safe. It may not be ideal with what we have at the minute. I don't like to see Martin McGuinness being a minister of the Crown. It makes me sick. It makes me sick to my stomach. But the fact is, whatever that minister of the Crown does, it has to go to the Queen for Royal Assent. So he's working for the United Kingdom of Great Britain. We won, he lost. The other thing is, the reason, ladies and gentlemen, I say that is, I always knew that we could control it. I always knew that we would prevail, we would win. The thing that has caused me more anxiety, more worry, more frustration than the IRA and all the troubles that we had in Northern Ireland has been the European Union. And even my own party in Ulster, the Ulster Unionists, my previous party, the Conservatives, we heard William Hague said, well, I would still vote to stay in, I don't like the company. You know, all these other parties seem to just go along with the flow in Europe. No one is prepared to stand up and tell the truth. Even at the last Assembly elections, the Ulster Unionists were saying, whenever people were saying, what about all these Lithuanians, Polish, Eastern Europeans? Oh, we need them for industry. A lot of nonsense. We need to become more efficient in our processes. We need to get our own people off the dole and back into jobs again. We don't need all these people. And that is why I joined the UK Independence Party, because we are the only party who are telling the truth in Europe. One of the other things I just wanted to mention on here very briefly, I couldn't attend the Constitutional Reform Group of UKIP, which I was invited onto with David Campbell Bannerman, because I got planning permission for a memorial in the town where I represent in Kilkeel and Newry and Mourne, to build a memorial to all the police officers and soldiers that were killed during the Troubles, protecting our area. Now, it actually became very much a UKIP event, because I was the chairman of the group that built this memorial. But there were when we launched it on the 26th of August this year, there were 4,500 people attended the unveiling ceremony. At least 60–70% of them were from all over the United Kingdom, all ex-servicemen from England, Scotland, Wales. Every part of the United Kingdom attended. And there is a yearning on the part of the armed services, right from lowly corporals, like I was myself, right up to lieutenant colonels, very senior officers who think that the British people have turned their back on their own armed forces, on that we don't appreciate them enough. And I would ask that the UK Independence Party, please, to be seen to be different on this from all the other political parties, be seen to support our armed services, because they are a brilliant bunch of people, and we need to help them. The other thing is, people have said to me, whenever I did move to UKIP in March, why have you moved now? Look at the Daily Telegraph, they're bust, they have no future. But Enoch Powell, and I worked for Enoch Powell when he was the MP for Southdown on a voluntary basis. I used to knock doors for him and send out flyers and whatever. And Enoch always told me that politics is based on events. And if you look at the Scots nationalists, look at the Ulster Democratic Unionist, Paisley's crowd in Northern Ireland. A few years ago, they were a few nutcases, knocking round doors. People didn't take them seriously. But events prevailed, came about, that showed people, perhaps, these people have a point. But the biggest and most valid point that exists within the United Kingdom today is withdrawal from the European Union and self-government for the British people. And that's why I believe the UK Independence Party will become a massive national party through time. It's not going to happen overnight, but it will happen. We will have MPs, we will have councillors in every constituent part of the United Kingdom. And I just wish the day would come sooner or quicker. But ladies and gentlemen, we're all British. We are all proud of our country. Thank you.
Henry Riley, what a wonderful personality to get us going in Northern Ireland again. It gives me enormous pleasure. Enormous pleasure to know that we are in fact represented in all countries of the United Kingdom now. We are the United Kingdom Independence Party, as he says. Delroy just wants to make a comment in respect of some remarks he's heard around about the Young Independence Group.
Sorry to inflict myself upon you again, ladies and gentlemen. You're probably thinking, oh God, not him again. There have been some concerns amongst the audience that the young independents that seem to have forgotten the word UKIP. I can assure you we have not. Every literature, including the website, I have made sure when putting this thing together that the word UKIP is prominently represented in front of young independents. We are UKIP, we will never hide from that fact because we're very proud of that fact. So if I may just put some fears aside, that UKIP will appear, and it is already appearing against everything that says young independence. We are not a separate party, we want to be in the heart of this party, more on the side. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Delroy. Can I call on our party leader?
John, thank you very much indeed. I was amused to see today in the Daily Mail that I had spoken to you yesterday in the David Cameron unscripted style, which amused me because I've never given a scripted speech in my life. I don't think in UKIP that we need to give scripted speeches, because in this party, when we give speeches, whether it's in a local village hall, whether it's at a hustings meeting with other candidates, or whether it's at a party conference, the one thing in UKIP that we all have in common is when we speak from the heart, because we really believe in this. I was one of the founder members of this party back in 1993, and I have been to every single UKIP conference since. And I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I genuinely believe that the list of speakers, the quality of performance, the energy, enthusiasm, and incidentally, wasn't it so good to see those youngsters up on the platform just half an hour ago? I think this conference has marked a turning point in terms of the quality of this party. I think this is the best conference we've ever had. Now you remember that in the last 6 months of Roger Natman's leadership, we launched the 5 right things to do. And we turned up at the Conservative Spring Conference in Manchester, and somebody persuaded me to stand on top of an armoured personnel carrier, and we announced that we were parking our tanks on David Cameron's lawn. You might remember that. It was the first serious attempt to develop broader-based policies so that we could be seen, not just as a party that talks about European Union, but as a party that has a full manifesto, as a party that is going to put forward a blueprint for how an independent Britain could and should be governed. And we came to the Telford conference last year and we made you a promise. We promised you that we would look for the talent, the considerable talent that we have from within this party, that we would put those people together in policy groups, and we would deliver the policies that we needed for that blueprint to be real and for that blueprint to work. I hope that all of you that have come to this conference feel, having listened, that I think some of the policies we've developed are quite superb, imaginative, different and bold. I hope that we, the leadership, have kept faith with you. I hope that we've delivered our promise. I hope you're confident that you can go out there now and campaign for UKIP and know that we're the only people offering a full alternative. We're the only people that are determined, with every single policy that we put forward, to put Britain and the British people first. And I have a feeling we're getting it right. Very nice little thing happened this morning. I got to the railway station in Kent to come up to town, and they've got these machines now. You know, the ones where you put cards in and press. Well, it's all far too complicated for me. So I queued up, I went to the ticket barrier, and the chap who works there, he's there all the time. He was in fact from Nigeria originally, but he's been in Britain for 10 years, and several times over the years he's made a little comment. Little comments like, we don't want the Constitution, Mr. Farage, do we? And things like that. Well, this morning, he said to me, oh, I heard what you had to say about immigration yesterday. I saw it on the BBC News. He said, I have to tell you, I couldn't agree with that policy more. And you know, I think we've got this right. I think we've got this immigration policy right. And I repeat the point that I made yesterday. I think the biggest supporters of a 5-year moratorium on future immigration into this country isn't just us, but it'll be the settled ethnic communities who are already living in this country, who have integrated, who are doing well and who are contributing, and it's the social harmony within which they run their businesses and live their lives that's most under threat. You remember, the reason we're here is that we know that however good, however effective pressure groups are, however good the literature that they produce, however powerful the arguments they make, we believe in this party that the way to really get things changed is to put candidates up at elections. It is to threaten the political class in this country. And it's only by being a threat that we'll ever achieve what we want. It's only by being a threat that will get referendums. It's only by being a threat that will get people talking about the issues that are so dear to us. And so the whole game, as Pete Reeves said, just a few moments ago, the whole game is about putting up candidates. If you don't put up candidates, you can't take votes from anybody else. If you don't take votes from anybody else, you're not a threat. And if you're not a threat, we won't achieve our goals. Now, we are just possibly 48 hours or so away from a general election being announced. Now, I've no idea whether Gordon Brown is going to announce this election. Privately, I don't think he will. But I said yesterday, I hope honestly to you, that if we get that snap general election, we're not really ready. That we've had the debilitating effect over the summer of the Electoral Commission. But I feel from the enthusiasm that I've met from people at this conference today, several people have said, well, look, Nigel, if there is a snap general election, we'll put our name up, we'll help you, because we have got to put 400 to 500 candidates in the field. And if we have to do so at very, very short notice, it needs as many of you in this room as can possibly help to please, during the lunch break today, as you leave this hall now, go to that table at the back right of the room with the big orange sign that says candidates, and please, put your name down, because we may well need you in the event of a snap general election. I know that whenever I've made these pleas at party meetings or at the party conference last year, you've always responded magnificently, but I think it's our duty to give as many people that live in this country the opportunity to vote for the one party, the party that believes that we should divorce ourselves from the European Union and that we should renegotiate a genuine free trade agreement, which is what we thought we'd signed up to in the first place.
Thanks, Nigel. Before we break for lunch, a couple of housekeeping notices here. I must remind London members of a dinner at the Porter's English Food Restaurant, Tuesday the 30th of October. Please see Ralph for tickets. Guest speaker, DCB. What about the rest of us? Can't any of us come from the Northwest? Let me just remind you, there are lots of stands out there still who would very much like your attention. Peter Roberts, who spoke earlier, has a stand on road pricing. Gerard Batten's book is on sale, that's on the costs of the EU. Rob McWhirter, who spoke to you, would be pleased to speak to any branches about website help. Paul Hankey, the new chairman of Scotland, is selling his books out there on the stand, and all the proceeds from the sales go to Scotland's funds. Our friends, the Bruges Group, are there, and I think that the Freedom Association are still there. Northwest has a DVD on sale. This DVD features in particular the ways in which European Union regulations impinge on small businesses, but it's a very general thing telling you what the EU is about and why we shouldn't belong. Finally, Young Independents got a stand out there. Any youngsters, please go and sign up with Dell's crowd. Last but not least, UKIP merchandise. Lots of interesting things to buy. In particular, I do believe they've still got a few umbrellas left. Do enjoy your lunch, chaps. Thank you. I've just been asked to add to those announcements that Christians in UKIP are meeting in the White Room, 1 o'clock. The speaker being Jeff Locke, topic Hampton the Patriot. Sorry, amendment, it is not taking place in the White Room, it's taking place in this hall. That's Christians in UKIP at 1 o'clock. now continue with the afternoon session, which consists mainly of 3 motions with a few bits of entertainment interspersed. But before I go into that, I have an announcement to make in respect of the London elections next year, and that is that the London Committee has now chosen Gerard Batten MEP as their candidate for the Mayor for London's elections next year. Gerard, let's say a couple of words.
Thank you, John. I'll be very brief. I don't want to eat into the debating time, so I'll just say a few words. Now, there was a meeting this morning of the London region activists, and they confirmed me then, as John said, as the candidate for London Mayor, and the election will be taking place on the 1st of May. Now, I think as a London Mayor candidate, I've got some very big things going for me. Number one, I'm not Ken Livingstone. Number two, I'm not Boris Johnson. And of course, number three, I'm not a Liberal Democrat or a Green, whoever their candidates may be. Now, what are the big issues facing London? You don't have to be a political genius to work out that they are transport, crime, the rate of council tax, and overcrowding in London. Now, I don't want to say too much at this point about policy and give too much away, but I think that you will understand where I'm coming from, and that I will be people-friendly, which also means being car-friendly. I'm going to be high taxation unfriendly, and I'm going to be criminals unfriendly. And as someone who actually worked for a living for 30 odd years before I became an elected politician, I'm used to managing budgets. And I'm going to look very closely at the budget and save money. And one of the first things that I can do, probably the first thing I'll do, is to close down the Mayor's office in Brussels and make a good start saving some money there. Now, as a UKIP candidate, of course, I will be able to say the things that other candidates cannot say. The sensible, non-politically correct things that they won't say. And of course, the policy things that they can't say, even if they wanted to, because they know that those areas of policy are now governed by the EU. As the candidate, I will be drawing attention to these policies and saying what UKIP would do, and pointing out why we can't do them while we're still members of the EU. But I can assure you that if I'm elected as London Mayor, I will do everything within my power to thwart the power of the EU in London. Now, our objectives in London, of course, are to win the mayoral seat. It's to win back the seats that we won last time in the London Assembly. And of course, it's to prepare the way for an even bigger victory in the European parliamentary elections in 2009. Not to mention, of course, helping our candidates in the general election whenever that will come along. I hope to raise UKIP's profile. As you've probably guessed, running a mayoral candidate and a London Assembly candidate election is extremely expensive. So if there are any rich people in the audience, or even not so rich people who would like to make a donation, we would be gratefully accept it. What you have to realise about these Assembly elections is, of course, as you all know, they're on proportional representation, so we can win. We got 6% for our mayor candidate last time. We got about 8% for the Assembly candidates, which is why we won 2 seats. I want even more seats next time, and I want to be mayor, so I can really put UKIP on the map. So I hope that you're all going to support me in any way you can, spread the word, and I'm looking forward to a great election campaign next year, and a fantastic day for UKIP on the 1st of May 2008. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerard, and good luck. Let's get on with the motions. Derek Clark is going to be chairing the motions again this afternoon, because unfortunately Geoffrey Titford MEP, who did the first motion yesterday, has been unable to come. He's not very well today. I wonder if it was something to do with the horse racing or the food. Derek Clark. Thank you, Derek.
I'm sure that this morning that you spotted the deliberate mistake. The result of the vote for the motion number 1 was 124 and 112 against, which meant it was carried. Sorry, I said rejected. However, it means that although carried, it cannot be adopted as party policy unless it is endorsed by the NEC. And since I'm on the NEC as one of the MEP nominees, I will make sure that it is presented, and the chairman is still listening, and you are warned, John, but it will be presented. It also saves me, if I can get it right this afternoon, from being set upon by Graham Booth, MEP, one of my colleagues, who makes a practice in the European Parliament of when there's a vote by hand, which is most of the time, and the person in the chair calls it, we think, wrong, he notes down what's happened, and if we manage to persuade the guy in the chair to do an electronic vote, half the time it turns out that they are wrong. And so he proceeds to write that into his little notebook. But you won't have to do that this afternoon because I get it right. Sorry? I beg your pardon? All right? As long as you're happy and satisfied. Motion number 2 then for this afternoon, which reads, British road hauliers developing goods to Europe pay tax in the form of a motorway tolls and vignette (brackets tax discs). Non-UK hauliers pay nothing to enter Britain. We propose a road tax on foreign registered hauliers entering Britain. It is to be proposed by Fred McGlade of the North Lancashire branch, and I have only 2 speakers, 1 for, 1 against, in the shape of Robin Julian and Bernard Collignan. If Fred would like to come up for his 4 minutes, please, we would be very grateful.
Gordon Brown, Prime Minister, eh? There's no wonder I'm not sleeping at night. The British road haulage industry plays a massive role in the UK economy. 1 million people are employed, and our freight companies transport more than 1.5 billion tonnes of goods each year. UK road hauliers need a government that has British interests at heart. Our hauliers deserve a better deal. The current government pursues a punitive tax assault on the haulage sector, and have created a situation where the UK haulage industry is the most overtaxed in Europe. Massive fuel tax means our hauliers have huge running costs. Haulage operators from other European countries enter the UK with fuel tanks full of cheaper diesel than can be bought in the UK, and unlike our hauliers, pay nothing for the use of our roads. Our hauliers pay road tax in France, Italy, Austria, Spain, Greece and Portugal. In Holland, Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg and Denmark, our hauliers have to purchase a Eurovignette, which is a pass that allows them to operate on the country's truck roads. It's a straightforward road tax. UK hauliers that actually operate vehicles in those countries must also pay an additional rate above the UK charges. Gordon Brown said in 1998 and again in 2001 that he recognised this as a major problem, and he promised to level the playing field. Since then, of course, he has done nothing. Shame on him. More broken promises, more sleazy tactics to gain the votes of honest, decent, hard-working people who are the lifeblood of our economy. I propose that the UK Independence Party commits itself to a level playing field for our hauliers. This should initially take the form of applying for European hauliers operating on our roads to pay a charge. British hauliers do not demand special treatment, just plain, honest, fair dealing, and just a little support from those who promise so much and deliver so little. Thank you.
There are only 2 speakers on the list with the slips. The 1 for, 1 against. I should get Bernard speaking against the best possible chance of the last word. So I'll ask Robin Julian, please, to come up and speak for. Robin, are you here? Robin Julian from North West Devon.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, Lords, ladies and gentlemen. Talking about in support of this road tax, but I used to be a continental lorry driver and I used to travel all over Europe. And I feel like the previous speaker that we are at a disadvantage because when I used to go to Germany, if you had more than half a tank of diesel, they would charge you about 25 or 50%, depending on how much diesel you had in your vehicle before you could travel on their roads. Also, on a Sunday, you could not travel on their roads like you can in this country because they wouldn't allow you and you had to use their industrial trains to go to your destination on the Sunday, so you could be ready for Monday. So, and as you very well know, as the previous speaker said, you also have to pay in France and all those tolls, and they have wonderful roads, and ours are dilapidated, giant holes everywhere, and you're governed with God knows how many rules and regulations. So I propose that we should charge these foreigners to come over here because they have now 3 tanks, they have 2 either side of their vehicle, 1 catwalk tank which goes right across the back of their vehicle, and they can travel from Dover to Scotland and back without paying a penny on diesel. So therefore, I feel that they should jolly well pay for it. If they want to come here, they pay. And there seems to be more and more continental lorry drivers in this country than our own lorry drivers. And they're bringing in all sorts. And the last thing I'd like to say is that the transport system is suffering, because I did a job for one of these HGV drivers, I've still got a licence, and it was a big company, and they paid £300,000 because the EU wanted a bar on the side of their lorries between the cab and their trailers, because in case some old lady might have fallen in the 4-inch gap, and it cost them £300,000. And I find it absolutely stupid, and they said that they must have it on there because they're asking the British, and if they didn't like it, then we wouldn't implement it in the EU. Thank you very much, Mick.
Bernard Collignan, please, from Isha, Walton and Spelthorne.
Mr. Chairman, Lords, ladies and gentlemen, Bernard Collignan from the Isha, Walton and Spelthorne branch speaking against the motion, and I have here the notes from my unscripted Faragian from the heart speech. I speak as a friend of the road haulage industry, but I'm also opposed to more regulation and more tax. I sympathise with the thought behind this motion to remove an inequity, but I don't think it's the way to do it. We must encourage free enterprise, and that includes haulage businesses and independent truck operators everywhere. The only result of this proposal will be more tax and more bureaucracy. And it doesn't address the real problem of the safety of foreign trucks on British roads and the competence of the drivers to drive on British roads. All we need is a simple exchange of letters between us and other countries saying, if we drive in your country, you can drive in our country. And I would start by writing to Monsieur Sarkozy, and I would say, if you let British truckers drive free in France, then French drivers can drive here. And it would start something like, Cher Monsieur Sarkozy, if we drive free in France, that's fine. If not, vos camionniers paieront ici pour conduire en le Royaume-Uni. But all this will do, ladies and gentlemen, is to increase the prices of the goods that you and I buy when we go to the supermarket on Saturday morning to buy exotic foods, clothing, building materials, electrical goods, and it won't actually do much to help us in the long run. It'll only cause animosity with people who should be our friends around the world. I would commend you to vote against the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes the list of speakers, but the proposer, Fred McGrath, has got the right for a 2-minute summary if he wishes. If you wish, Fred.
Due respect to the following speakers, the issue I was addressing was inequity. This is the issue that really is the heart of what the motion is all about. It's the inequity. I do not see how charging foreign hauliers to enter this country when we're already paying to enter their countries can increase the cost of the goods in this country. I simply don't see where that came from. This is about possibly the one thing that's at the heart of the whole thing. It's about our people. It's about our country. It's not about anyone else's country. It's about us and every one of us in this room. Thank you.
My thanks to all speakers. It now requires a vote, as before, with the card. Lights. If you're ready then, will you please show all those in favour of the motion? Thank you very much. All those against the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And those who would seek to abstain, please. I declare that carried by a very, very large majority. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the third motion of the afternoon, proposed by Gordon Parkin of the Stockton-on-Tees branch, which reads, "A system of national service should be introduced for all people reaching 17 years of age, with exceptions, for a period of 2 years. The service will provide a wealth of benefits for our way of life." Gordon Parkin, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I hope you'll be lenient with me, having prepared a 15-minute speech, then told I've only got 4 minutes. I hope I get through what I need to say. Right, when we mention a national service, we're not talking about a method of swelling. My apologies. We're not talking a method of swelling our forces, although we are a little thin on the ground in certain sectors. I'm aware that most military actions are... Right, is that better? My apologies. I'm aware that most military battles are fought with technology in mind and not thousands of troops on the ground, although I haven't seen much evidence of that lately. We're talking about reinstating a sense of pride into our country. We're talking about introducing a national service system of grooming that will offer every young British citizen the chance to obtain their aim and our direction in life, and to gain self-respect and respect for others. For too long we have restrained ourselves and said nothing, just to go on with the flow and hope all works well. Having spoken to several people on this subject, they seem to be horrified at the thought of mentioning it for fear of discrediting themselves. Well, let me tell you, if I discredit myself today, I'll walk out of here a very proud British man. I think we need to be heard and heard loudly. We shouldn't worry that we may offend people. It's time to let the people know that we're prepared to take steps to secure our way of life and not be ashamed of why we are doing it. There's a large proportion of the younger generation and young adults that have little or no respect for society in general. I feel that this is largely due to the steady erosion of discipline and respect from all aspects of British life. Discipline has been eroded and in some cases vanished from our schools and education establishments, prison services, family life, police forces and the armed forces. We constantly hear we need to open new offender centres establishments, more prisons, employ more police on the streets to cope with the ever-increasing numbers of young people in unemployment and persistently offending. Strange how we provide tens of thousands of jobs for the immigrants, mind you, but that's another story. I'd like to see the following happen in our country. A large reduction in people in our prisons, a reduction in the number of prisons we require, a reduction in young offender centres and young offenders, a reduction in street crimes and gangs on our streets and cities, a reduction of police and support officers on our streets, a reduction of unemployment leading to a reduction in benefit claimants, and I would like to see an increase in military capabilities. Thank you. All of the above and a lot more could be achieved if we would consider the proposals that are put into conference. The proposal that we introduce is a period of national service for all personnel from the age of 17 years. This service will run for 2 years, no time off for good behaviour, mind you, and this time will entail all aspects of military life and disciplines with the exception of active combat service. Following this period, the people would then be eligible to sign up to active service and the main three forces. Understandably, there would need to be exceptions, rulings for such things as further education and other special circumstances, and I'm sure that David Cameron-Bannerman would take that on board at a later stage. I, like you, really do want to save this country and put the great back into Britain. So let us please consider this proposal. I recommend that this conference gives its blessing to the proposal of a national service system. Thank you.
We have 3 speakers for and 3 speakers against, ladies and gentlemen. I'd take the fours first and go 1 and 1, because again Gordon has got the opportunity to sum up, so as to give the against a little bit of a last chance to speak. So would please Ralph Atkinson, next on my list, come and speak from the Lewisham branch of London.
Hi, I'd like you to give a qualified positive vote to the motion, but I don't actually support a purely military national service. I'm a former TA person, but I'm also a former teacher. I understand some of the problems that young people have in getting a good start in life. So I understand also that the armed forces prefer volunteers. The sort of situation that people are in Iraq or Afghanistan at the moment, you don't want somebody with you who's there supposedly to protect your life, who doesn't actually want to be there and doesn't want to be taking the risk. You want volunteers only, and I understand that. Not everybody is suited to a life in the armed forces, but everybody can serve the country. I'd like to see an extended form of national service covering possibly 18 months rather than 2 years. I'd like to see it include people training in the NHS. I'd like to see people joining in and helping the police force deal with New Labour's real legacy of crime in the police or the courts. And when I say the police, I mean the real police, not the plastic police. I'd like us to look at other things, like, for instance, people working in forestry or looking at wilderness areas. There's all sorts of ways that young people could serve this country and get a sense of pride, a sense of having helped rebuild the nation. Now, New Labour's answer to this problem at the moment is to force young people to stay at school until they're 18, which I think is going to lead to greater levels of truancy. It's hopeless. If we give young people the opportunity to do national service at 16, 17, 18 or after university, it becomes much more flexible. 13. And we need people in all sorts of walks of life. And I don't see any reason why this party shouldn't consult organisations like the Royal National Lifeboat Institute or organisations that deal with disaster relief abroad, because young people are needed to help out there. So I'd like you to vote yes, but I'd like you to vote yes to a much broader form of national service with lots of choice for young people. And when we consider our policy, we need to include young independents and Delroy Young in the committee so that we get young people's point of view about what they want and how they think they can serve and make this country a better place. Thank you.
Gregory Knott, please. Gregory? Of the Gillingham Kent.
Good afternoon, Chairman, my lords, ladies and gentlemen. I'm broadly in favour of this because it actually brings comradeship, it teaches our young people discipline, it teaches them training and in a skill maybe, and also they learn to trust each other and to depend on each other. So I think there's some very real benefits from the concept, from the idea that's being put forward here. But I think the problems that we would face are just too large for it to be part of our policy now. The first thing, of course, is how would we pay for it? There are going to be a very large number of people going through this training which is going to be paid for by you, the taxpayers. How are we going to organise it? What would the logistics be? Where would we find the barracks? Where would we find the places for these people to be? We also have the major problem that the armed forces of our country just are incapable at present of handling such a thing. There is no way that they could cope with the very large number of people that would be required to go through the organisation. It's impractical. The last speaker spoke about doing other things. Well, I think that would be a grand idea if we could actually have some time to think about what the alternatives might be. I certainly don't think I'd want to have a trainee who didn't really want to be in the National Health Service treating me. I think there are other places possibly for it to go, and so I would, under duress, ask you to vote against this motion because it's a grand idea, but I do feel that it's impractical for the party to adopt at present. Thank you.
Phil Griffiths from the North West, please. Phil Griffiths.
My lords, ladies and gentlemen, I'm voting for the motion, because I think it's a sensible thing to do. I'm a businessman, I have a retail outlet. The area I chose to have my business located many years ago, in fact 8 years ago, was quite a nice place. I've seen it decline rapidly over those 8 years. The kids of today, they can't speak properly, they've never been educated, they don't know what you're talking about, they've got no manners, and it's time that we change that. I served in the reserve forces for 17 years, and during that period I met some wonderful people who actually fought for this country, and it hurts me so much when I see such a decline and nobody seems to care about it. I know this party cares about it, and this is why I'm going along with the motion. I believe it's important to put some fabric back into society, and let's get our country back to where it should be, not the decline we've seen over the past, certainly 10 years with this, excuse my language there, this government. I could have got a bit naughty there. And that, for that matter, the decline started with the Conservative government previously. We've got to put something back into society, we've got to give these people some discipline, put some pride back into themselves, put a sense of purpose to them, rather than just let them go onto the scrap heap of society. We can make them actually a national asset instead of a liability, and that's why I'm supporting this motion. Thank you.
Philip Smith from North West Hands, please.
Good afternoon, conference. I believe that national service is not the way to go in this day and age. I'm a Formula Regular soldier who left the army almost 30 years ago, and I agree that my service was the most character-building thing that has ever happened to me. But while national service might have been a good idea in the 1950s, society has changed and it's no longer appropriate. Firstly, the armed forces themselves would not appreciate a massive influence of recalcitrant troops who don't want to be there. The regulars would be reduced to either to jailers to keep them from absconding, would have to nursemaid the conscripts or any sort of active service to try and keep them alive. This would ruin the efficiency of our armed forces. Just remember how well our professional army performed against a mainly conscript Argentinian army in the Falklands War. Secondly, we don't have the logistics for this. Where would we find the barracks to house hundreds of thousands of young conscripts? They'd have to be paid something, and if they only got half the regular pay, this would create a massive wages bill. Think of the massive increase in vehicles and equipment needed to service these people. Thirdly, who's going to be exempt from this service? Are we going to try and compel young militant Islamists to do a couple of years in the army? This would be tantamount to training the next generation of terrorists how to use weapons. And if we exempt militant Islamists from military service, and those other faiths that are doing their service will scream discrimination, and they'll be right. Lastly, it wouldn't be popular with most people and would be an electoral liability for UKIP. 18 and 19-year-olds are never going to vote for a party that proposes this, and their parents are not going to be pleased to see their little darlings hauled out off to serve in the army with all its possible dangers. And as regards civil service, they won't want to see them going off to do community service when they haven't done anything wrong. We must realise that at the moment this party is politically nowhere, and the only person that can put us politically somewhere is Joe Public. If we disregard Joe Public and try to make policy just to suit ourselves, Joe Public is going to disregard us at the ballot box. We need to be discussing policy in the corridors of power, not in the back room of a pub somewhere. Please vote against this motion. Thank you.
George Randall, please, from Sutton.
My lords, ladies, gentlemen, conference, I come to praise the proposal, not to crucify it. Yes, we have changed, society has changed, but there is still a need today to install discipline into the young and sometimes the not so young. If you look at society and what's happening in every town and village in this country, the young have no idea and no concept of living in harmony with their elders and their own generation. We have bullying in schools which follows through into life after school, and we do not have an adequate police force at the moment to deal with it. We need to gain control of our own police forces and our own army. We have to leave Europe. We have to become the Great Britain that we used to be. I served in the TA. I missed the old national service. In those days, and when I was that age, I probably would have resented it. But what I learned in the TA has followed me through into civilian life, and I think a lesson can be learned for every young man or woman that goes into the army or to the services. But it needs to be to the armed forces only to put these people into the medical profession could be a disaster. I ask conference, I urge them to vote for this motion and to bring some harmony and tranquility back into society. Thank you.
Stan Oram from North West Hants, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't realise my colleague from North West Hampshire was going to speak as well, so you've got a double dose from our constituency. I joined the Navy in 1959. I didn't join the fleet until 1964 because I served ashore as an apprentice. But when I went to sea, I mixed with people who served as regulars while they mixed with people who were impounded into the service, who didn't want to be there, could thumb their nose at discipline and really upset the general routine. A tight ship was a happy ship. A good unit that works together is a successful unit. National service, if by any chance we should vote this with a 2/3 majority, it will be an electoral killer. Society will not support conscripted military service. Lots of things that have been said I support. I would support a national youth service where people with military instructors but without any weapons got all the advantage of adventurous training that the services provide, climbing, sailing, gliding, orienteering, all these other things, plus some youth service, and I would use military instructors to do it. But national military service would be an electoral killer. I urge you to vote against it.
Now, I know you're part of a party believing in free speech, so I hope you don't mind that a late entry has come into the list in the shape of Lawrence Webb from London, who also wishes to speak against Hungary. That really does close the list.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. When I first heard that this motion was being put on the agenda, I was absolutely horrified. I'm an acting serving member of the Territorial Army, and it's something I do because I choose to do it. We seem to have missed the point that we've got youths coming through today that are getting ASBOs and things like that, but if we wait until they are 17, we've missed the boat. Perhaps it's their parents that should be doing national service or parenting lessons. I think this would be an absolute disaster for this party. We had a brilliant presentation this morning from Independence Youth. They would run a mile, as someone said earlier, if they thought that we were going to constrict them to do something they didn't want to do. It is not for everyone to do national service. Some people enjoy it, some people loathe it. The military do not want ill-disciplined, ill-trained people that do not want to be there. We have a professional army, the best army in the world, and it is because it is full of professionals, not amateurs, that do not want to be there. I urge you, I implore you, when the vote comes, vote against this motion. It would, as someone mentioned, be electoral suicide. Thank you very much indeed.
And Gordon Rankin, the proposer, has the right to 2 minutes, I think.
If nothing else, I've got you all talking, haven't I? Right, to pick up on a few things, I'd like to reiterate what I said originally. I did say non-combatant. That means, as the previous speakers just meant, a youth service with hard training, but also with rock climbing, with swimming, with doing other things like they have in the military service, education. I'm not talking about, as I stated, going into military service as a fighter. I'm talking about, as you've mentioned, a youth service, yes, to give it another word. I also mentioned, if you recall, let's all sit back and hope it all goes away. That is what some of you are implying now. Because believe me, it will not go away. It will get worse. Particularly with the amount of immigrations and knife-wielding young men that are coming into this country. We've got to put discipline back into the country. If somebody has another way of doing it, then let them come forward. I did say earlier, I will stick to my guns on this one. If you don't like it, vote against it. But please, think about what's going to happen to the country. Sorry?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Do let the speaker finish, please.
I will ask you once again to vote for this motion. It is not military service, it is a youth conditioning service. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The only proper way to express your support or otherwise for this motion is to vote. Could we have the House lights, please? Is that possible? Wonderful. All those in favour of this motion about national service, please shout. And those against? Thank you. I think you would say that was overwhelmingly against. Can I have abstentions, please? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Motion defeated. Thank you very much for your consideration. This part of the afternoon is now concluded, and I'll return it to John Whittaker rather smugly because we finished ahead of time and given him more time than he thought he was going to have.
Wonderful, Derek. Thank you. At least somebody else coming up to speak knows how to behave. Thank you, Derek. We move now to the presentation of gold medals, and Greg Beeman is going to announce those who are awarded gold medals. Thank you, Greg.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If I dry up, it's because Nigel doesn't allow us to use scripts. My father, who can't be here today, is waiting for a knee replacement. He was a postman all his life. And it wasn't that finished his knee, it was the amount of leafleting he's done in the last 10 years for UKIP. So he always said to me when I was growing up, whatever you do, son, never volunteer. So straight away I became a volunteer. And this is a fantastic part of the conference because it's a tribute to certain people, but it's actually a tribute to all of you who work so hard for the UK Independence Party and for our country. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of you. And I used to have an old boss when I worked in the voluntary sector who used to say, managing volunteers is like herding cats. And I have to say, I agree with him. But I also happen to love cats. So it's a privilege for me to be working with John Whittaker as the regional organiser. And I'd like to invite my colleagues now to join me. We've got Steve Harris from the South East, Dave Chalice, who works at head office, and Stuart Gulliford, who works in the Eastern Counties. And we've got some very special people we'd like to come and join us on the stage. Starting, George Stride. Unfortunately, I don't think George is with us today. Cindy Norton and George Norton. Would you like to come and join us, please? Diana Beasley. Diana? We've got Derek Norton. Derek Norman, sorry. If Derek Norman would like to come up and join us. Jessie Pryke. John Croft. From the North West, I'd like you to give a very special round of applause to John Worrell. If you'd like to come and join us, John. Now, as I'm responsible for this session, I'm going to take a little liberty. We've got two very special people with us today, Henry and Effie Crocker. Where are you? Henry and Effie? Where are you? Would you like to come up? We've got a tankard. We've got a little tradition in the Northwest now, and when we have regional gatherings, we present long-standing volunteers who've worked really hard with an inscribed tankard. Poor old Henry's not been too well, and he's missed the last couple of regional gatherings. And we've got a tankard there that we've not been able to produce in the northwest, so we're going to do it today to Henry and Effie for all their argument.
Good afternoon, everyone. 5 years and 26 days ago, I started working for the gentleman that's sitting to my right, but who's counting? But one of the first people I met in UKIP in the Southeast was a gentleman who unfortunately can't be here today, and he was here yesterday, which is a shame, but we couldn't tell him. Mr. George Stride, or as we affectionately call him in the Southeast, following his years of service in the colonial service in Africa, Great Bull Elephant. He was on the NEC for a number of terms. He was very instrumental in founding the Wagner Regis branch. He was nominated by his branch. He's been sort of chairman emeritus for the last couple of years. And single-handedly, I think, I wasn't here at the time, pretty much put into place the selection and selectivity process for our candidates. And for the first couple of years, since we were fairly small, I think he sat in on every one of them. I sat in on a few of them with him, and he richly deserved his title of Great Bull Elephant. Unfortunately, he can't be here today, so now I'll move on to our next from the Southeast. In 2004, yes, we got 12 MEPs. Now, how did we get them? How many of you have sore feet? I was watching Dennis Healy, and I'm not often given to quoting Labour politicians, or Labour anything for that matter. And I came back from a day in leafleting. Not that I do much of it, I usually sit in the office and run it. That's why I was not as slim as I should be. And Healy, when I got back home that night watching television, there's Healy on the screen. And they said, "Come on, Lord Healy, tell us what makes a really good politician." You know what his answer was? Good feet. What we did in this party in 2004 was delivered personally with your hard-worn shoe leather, 9 million leaflets. And our next two Southeast region gold medals go to a couple that delivered about 6.5 of that million themselves. George and Cindy Norton have been the mainstays, never want to be in the limelight. I'm sure as a retired naval officer, I'm about to get clobbered by a retired Army officer when we get off the stage. But they were there for everything. Instrumental in the Folkestone branch, did as great as this is, and this is one of the most fantastic we've had, they and their branch made their own stage set for a Southeast rally we had in Guildford one time. Lived in Folkestone, we're in Leominster, it just didn't matter. They went anywhere. If I needed something and I couldn't get anybody else to do it, I called Folkestone. This couple, George and Cindy, are the epitome of what makes UKIP what it is.
Thank you, Steve. I'd like to introduce Dave Chalice now, who's part of the head office team.
Thank you very much. The Exeter nomination for a gold medal is Diana Beasley. And Diana is a dynamo. Diana, like many of you I know, has delivered thousands and thousands of leaflets. But as well as delivering thousands and thousands of leaflets, Diana comes into head office 3 or 4 times a week and helps out in so many ways. I think, to be quite frank with you, if Diana didn't come in, we'd at very minimum have to employ another part-timer. So not only is she saving the party money in that sense, she's also making us money. The other day I was in the office and one of the other volunteers, David Grills, opened up an envelope. And he said, looked across the room and Diana was there, and he said, "Diana, have you been delivering in Heathertree in Exeter?" And she went, "Oh yes." And he said, "I've got a cheque for £1,000 in here from a lady." From a lady who said, "I don't want to join your party, and I don't want any more publicity material, but I agree with you totally, and here's a cheque." So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Diana Beasley. She's wonderful.
Thank you, David. And I'd like to now introduce Stuart Gulliford, who's political advisor to Geoffrey Titford.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm doubly honoured today, firstly to be asked to address conference and you, the heart and soul of the party, and secondly to talk about 3 unsung heroes from the eastern counties. I'm pleased to say 2 of them are here. One, unfortunately, can't be with us today. He's at a wedding, which is a pretty good excuse, except for the fact that it's the wedding of a UKIP branch chairman. And I'm going to have a word with him about arranging weddings on the same day as conference. The first of our unsung heroes who isn't here is Derek Norman. I see that's a popular choice. I've known Derek for many, many years, more years than I care to think. We've sat around many meeting tables on Saturday afternoons, more times than I care to even think about, planning the downfall of the EU. I knew him through the campaign of Independent Britain First and much more recently through the UK Independence Party. He's the backbone behind everything that goes on in Cambridgeshire. He's a major inspiration to new members in that area. He helps with every major event that we put on in the Eastern Counties. I think everyone from the Eastern Counties at some point or other has had a cup of tea organised by Derek and Kay Norman. He hasn't been in the best of health for a little while, but I gather he's in pretty good form now. So that was our first unsung hero, and I hope that someone will take his medal to him. My second unsung hero is known as the Scalp Hunter. He's the scourge of South Essex. He's known locally for bringing down 2 council leaders in local elections. He's an inspiration to any aspiring candidate with his vintage sports car and his hard-hitting leaflets. I gather that the Tories in his part of the world are frightened stiff of him. On a personal level, I can always rely on him for a bit of political advice. I can give him a ring and he'll always take time to have a chat with me. I wouldn't say he's been around a long time, but he once met Winston Churchill. Ladies and gentlemen, John Croft. I hardly know where to begin with this next gentleman. I've known him for what seems like forever. I'd like to think of him as a good friend. He's the chairman of the Malden East Chelmsford branch, and I would like to say that he's the first branch to select, first branch in the Eastern Counties to get all his candidates in place for the general election. He's always got some sort of branch initiative going on, be it a newsletter or an event planned. He even owns a car, ladies and gentlemen, painted in UKIP's colours. It's a Metro, and it's absolutely hideous, I have to say. But you certainly can't miss it. It looks like a piece of coal in a sugar bowl. It's how it stands out, and it takes guts to drive that around for the cause, I have to say. He's part of our support team at Geoffrey Titford's office. In fact, I could say he is the support team, really. every time we've got an initiative going, if it's envelope stuffing, if it's going out on the streets, slogging around, putting them through the letterboxes, Jesse's there for us, despite the fact that he's had one replacement knee, I believe. I can safely say that we look forward to Jesse coming to the office. If we've got one of these huge projects on, sometimes we're surrounded in boxes of Allen-bound leaflets and the telephones are going balmy and there's dozens of people in there. Jesse there will crack a little joke and he'll lift the atmosphere in there. So we greatly value Jesse, and also the fact that he brings in loads of grandchildren to help us. Ladies and gentlemen, the true unsung hero, Jesse Pryke.
Thanks very much. The next award is for a very special woman. She's known in the Northwest as the other woman in my life. And I met her in 1999-2000 in the Preston by-election. She was the branch secretary in North Lancashire branch at the time, and her late husband was the branch chairman. And I have to say, Fred McGlade did propose the motion earlier, said Gordon Brown gives him nightmares. Fred's my branch chairman. You can imagine the nightmares I have. But Joan is a real grafter. She's spent years, she's tramped the streets, she's been out on petition stands. In fact, we had one in Lancaster a few years ago, and I went along about 10 o'clock in the morning. They'd all set up, and they were surrounded by riot police. And I wondered what she'd done. And we discovered Margaret Thatcher was turning up on a visit to Lancaster. So we ended up dogging Margaret Thatcher, running around with a great big UKIP placard behind her everywhere she went. And everybody was phoning us that night saying, I saw you and Joan on the news with that big UKIP banner behind Margaret Thatcher. And she's now a volunteer in the office. She's a fantastic woman. She's really good fun as well. She's a Scouser, but I don't hold that against her. John Worrell. Come on, John, you're getting me jealous. Thanks, John. And Henry and Effie have been stalwarts as well, going back in my time to the Preston by-election a few years ago. They've really been staunch workers. They kept the Wirral branch going almost single-handedly. When I was on the North West Counties Committee, Henry was the minute taker. They've done all kinds of things for the party. Unfortunately, Henry's not been too well. As I mentioned before, he's missed the last couple of regional gatherings. So a very special thank you to Henry and Effie, and please bob over to Nigel and collect your tankard in appreciation from all of us in the North West. Thank you. That's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege to do that part of the conference, but I'd like to pay a special tribute to Henry Riley. Where is Henry? Is he still around? Henry, who spoke, he's just come over to us from the Ulster Unionists. I'm not a very emotional person. I've never laid flowers outside Kensington Palace or anything like that. But I had a lump in my throat when Henry was speaking, and it's fantastic. And it was also fantastic to hear the lads from Young Independents. We've got some fantastic young libertarians there fighting away for us. And I hope, in years to come, I'll be back up here giving long service awards to the young people from Young Independents. So good luck to you. And thank you.
You know, it's a funny thing. If you think about UKIP, you think about why we came into being, this is, I think, almost the only political party ever that has not been a top-down movement, but it's been a bottom-up movement, hasn't it? It's been a party of the grassroots. It's been a party of people who, because they couldn't see anybody else that was worth voting for, thought we better do something rather different. And I must say that to be able to present those medals and tankards to the people that I've just been able to present them to, nearly all of whom I've known for a very long time. In fact, when I first met them all, I didn't have a single grey hair, and I was in my 20s. But these are the people that have really put the hard work into it. And whilst a political party, a movement, as it grows, needs leadership, and it needs professionalism, and it needs all of those things, there's an old saying, and it's absolutely right, that successful politics is as much about perspiration as it is about inspiration. And well done to all of those people. Thank you.
Right, we come now to motion number 4, to be presented by UKIP Wales. John Bufton is going to speak. Come up, please. For this motion, I will read out the motion. This party must become far more radical in order to achieve our core aims of leaving the EU, controlling immigration and recovering our borders. So thanks to UKIP Wales for presenting this. I have to say, we've got 6 speakers wish to speak after, and it's rather biased because we have 1 against and 5 for. So, would any of those who are speaking for like to change their minds and speak to the other side? If we have time, I'll give everybody who's put in to speak for the opportunity to speak. Since we're short of those against, are there any others in the audience who would like to throw their hat in the ring to speak against this motion now?
Would you like to tell us what the word radical means, please?
I'll leave that to the gentleman who's proposing the motion. Thank you. He asked if we would like to define radical. I'll leave that to the speaker. Okay, on with the fun. Let's leave it to John.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If I may, just before I start, I'd like to just make 2 points, if I may. This year we had the Welsh Assembly elections, and I would personally like to thank, on behalf of UKIP Wales, our MEPs for the support they gave us, but also to you, the membership, for supporting us financially and on the ground doing leafleting and so forth. Thank you all very much for that. The other point I'd like to make is, yesterday morning I actually put on most of your seats some leaflets, kindly donated by Alan Bown. Alan Bown has had 500,000 printed, and I'm sure you've seen those. And the point I'm making is now, those will all be delivered, or they have been delivered to the ROs over the last couple of days. So it's all part of the process of going forward. Alan's also asked me to mention he's ordered some Corex boards, the A2 size, and if anybody would like to have some of those, they're £1 each, and then again to let the ROs know. Going on to the actual motion we're putting forward, we in UKIP Wales had a meeting a few months back, and it was felt by some, and by many perhaps, that our core aims that we're all set about regarding UKIP, what we stand for, was sometimes not as strong as it perhaps should be. How delighted I am after hearing yesterday the announcement on our immigration policy. That's exactly what we were talking about. So I'm delighted we've got that forward to start. Thank you, Nigel, for listening, and thank you to all those involved in our committee, the policy committee, because this is so important to us as a party. We have to be quite clear on our values. When I talk about being radical, sir, the point I'm making is that we've had immigration on our literature in the past, and it's been in there, and it's not been bold enough. So we've got to go back to make it a bit more radical. And I think now the papers today have covered that, and that's a step in the right direction. We've seen for many months now of the influx of these Eastern Europeans that have come to our country. And it's almost as if people are too frightened to keep talking about it or mentioning it. Initially, when we came out with these, our proposals, once we knew what was going to happen, the public at large perhaps didn't believe it. But now they're actually seeing what's actually happened. We've seen a huge problem for our health service, for our housing departments, where there's been as many perhaps as 15 to 20 people living in the same house, pay one council tax. You know, we have to highlight these issues. We've seen what's happened with crime. Again, we've had Chief Constables, Cambridge was mentioned yesterday, and this is quite clearly where we need to be stronger on. So we started the process yesterday regarding announcing these policies and the immigration one, but now it's just the start. We have to roll these out across the country so that people do understand what we're about. I also think that our border controls and our committee felt in Wales are an absolute joke. Anybody in the Western world will see it, and it's just a laughing stock. Only the joke, it isn't funny, it's so serious. We need to be putting more emphasis on this, and we need to be running more campaigns, generating from the individuals in our party to do the small campaigns like we had with the parish polls, which have been exceptionally good in the southwest. We definitely need to be going forward and doing more and more of this. I know it sounds simple, and it's very difficult to go through the whole process, but we have to keep getting the message out all the time. I'll go on just briefly to the EU Constitution, because again, our core values, there are many things in that which, in our mind, we should be flagging up every day. It's so important. This treaty is critical, and if the referendum comes, we hope it does come, we know we'll be campaigning for a no vote, of course, but we do need to keep the pressure on as much as we can. Many people out there initially didn't understand what it was all about. It's down to us really to convey that message across. The very fact that it's an amending treaty as well makes it such a serious matter. People over many years in the world wars that we had in this country died for our democracy and our freedom. We owe it to all those people to fight for them and to fight for our future generation. We're lucky in UKIP to have excellent people on board. We're also lucky to have people like Alan Bound who will fund our plans. And I would like to also add now that, directed at the leadership, we need to look at a new campaign, basically looking at poster campaigns, leafleting, and billboards, etc., on the specifics. We need to be able to get that message out so people are under no illusion whatsoever what we stand for. It's our chance, it's our right, it's our country. I urge you all to support this motion. Thank you.